Sweet. Yeah. So there was a little technical difficulty. We are now using 2 dongles, a VGA to an HDMI and an HDMI to a mini DisplayPort to get this up here. So we engineer better. Okay, so please, happy to welcome you to General Body meeting number 7, and this is starting our mobile development series. So this week is iOS development, and it's with Maddie. And 2 weeks from now, we will have a Android development talk, which will be from Will. So look out for more information on that. So that's our mobile development series. I'm really happy to be able to bring this to you. And if you haven't already, please fill out attendance at acm.uc.org/c. That's where you can check in. So ACM resources, we have our recorded meetings up on our GitHub from every week. So those slides, the recordings are all up on our archive, acm.uc.org/archive. That'll take you to GitHub. Our org calendar is at acm.uc.org/meetings, and we have a listserv, which if you check into today's meeting, you'll get email notifications about upcoming meetings. We do have a lot of stuff going on, bi-weekly meetings, like right now. We have social events. RevUC is coming up in the spring, which I'm excited about. We have MakeUC, a student hackathon with IEEE. ICPC, which is coming up in just about 2 weeks, I think. Unfortunately, registration for that is now closed. We've hit our max capacity, so I'm sorry if you wanted to participate, but look out for more info for next year. We also have programming review sessions, office hours, Tuesdays 3 to 4, Wednesdays 6 to 7. And if you're not in our Slack, you can join the Slack at acmcincy.slack.com. That's where our community is mostly at day to day, so be sure to join that. We do have a code of conduct. You can read it at acm.uc.org/conduct. And Slack, again, this is so important that I'm going to mention it 2 times. It's the best way to connect with people in our org. Tons of stuff going on in there. Code of conduct does apply to that because it is part of ACM. But you can sign up at acmcincy.slack.com. I really recommend that you do that. What's the most important channel? Memes is the most important channel. You're correct. Upcoming hackathons. This is pretty interesting. We have Hack Ohio in Columbus. That's this weekend. I think, is registration closed for that now? Yeah. Registration is closed. Cincy. If you are going to Hack Ohio and you want to carpool, throw a message into the Slack because there's other people trying to do the same thing. Hack Cincy is a hackathon here in Cincinnati and over the Rhine at Union Hall. It's kind of put on by the startup community in Cincinnati, and it's open to students and non-students. It is a paid hackathon, but if you use the discount code student, you'll get $10 off and only have to pay $15. You can learn more at hackcincy.com. That's November 10th and 11th. This hackathon's pretty cool. There's a UC alum who helped organize it, so that's cool. And then Revolution UC, you can learn more at revolutionuc.com. That's the University of Cincinnati's hackathon. UC's biggest hackathon is returning in spring 2019. So you can't register right now, but you can fill out a little form on our website to get notified when registration does open. So be sure to do that. And here's a flyer for Hack Cincy. Yes, there are $10,000 in prizes. They really wanted to make that the attention grabber here. Yeah, so more information at hackcincy.com. Be sure to check it out. All right, so I'm going to let Maddie come up here, introduce herself, and take it away. Yeah. Full screen?
Yeah, just make it.
Oops.
Yeah. Just,
all right, we're good.
One.
Hi.
Hello. Okay, so this is iOS development, and we're gonna get started. Okay, so just a little bit about me. So my name is Maddie Eckhart. I am a third-year computer science student, and I've been doing iOS development for about 2 years now. I've experienced working on large corporate apps as well as some smaller startup apps that I've had the privilege to work on. My latest co-op was with Ulta Beauty, where I worked directly with external and internal apps that they used. But most of my time was spent working on a proof of concept augmented reality app that I actually got to present to the CEO to show how the feature technology can help the mobile buyers have a better experience, and we can like incorporate new things into our apps. And my next co-op will be with Kroger Technology as their iOS development intern. And hopefully after graduation, I will continue iOS development and perfect my craft. Awesome. Okay, so here's the timeline. So this is the game plan of what we're going to go over today. First, we're going to talk about the IDE used to make iOS apps, then the language that Apple products are programmed in, then how the app is structured, and then I'm going to just do a little live demo at the end. I'm going to give you guys a very general, high-level overview of everything so you guys can understand the structure and how everything works, and then we'll actually get to apply it at the end. Does that sound good? Awesome. Okay. So first off, the IDE. So iOS development is done specifically through Apple's IDE called Xcode. Here's a breakdown of some of the features. So Apple has a lot of really cool built-in libraries like ARKit, which does augmented reality, SpriteKit, which works with game development, and then SiriKit, which does custom Siri responses. And we'll talk more about that when I get into what frameworks that Apple has for the developers. You can also train models of programs in APIs in a playground, which is essentially an interactive debugger that shows the code's changes in real time next to the code. It really helps if you're getting a wrong variable in like a while loop and like you can't tell when it's going wrong. So you can just see on the side and it'll go through it and you can see exactly what happens. It's a really great when testing programs with a lot of variables. And if you have programs that are associated with a GUI, you can see changes if you like change gravity or if you change the animations of something, you can see it right as you change them. But probably my favorite feature of Xcode is the device simulators. So this is where you test your apps. And you can test in up to 22 Apple devices, so every Apple device that is out there right now, as well as multiple operating systems, which makes it really handy to see how your app interacts with everything on every platform, so you can get as accurate as possible with like your development stuff. And then Xcode also supports source control integration, code folding, custom debugging, and is also just a really clean and fast IDE that you can use. All right, so Swift. So when building iOS devices, when building apps for iOS devices, Xcode uses Swift as the primary language. Swift is a compiled programming language that is built for safety and performance, which are really important in app development. It was initially created as a replacement for C-based languages, but specifically Objective-C, because that was Apple's primary language for app development, and they really wanted to phase it out and make it more structured, I guess, and have like just a faster, newer language to program in. Swift is a very readable language, so even if you don't know it, it's pretty easy to understand what it's doing. And here's a snippet of code written in Swift. This is just a string extension, and so mutable variables are written with var, and then immutable variables are written with let. So this is just a variable of type string, and let short name just drops the first letter of the word and then returns that string. It's a lot like C with putting variables inside of returned strings. So you have the slash and then parentheses to return those. Awesome. Okay. And we'll be programming in Swift later. So if you guys have any like questions about that, I can answer it then. Okay, so now we know the IDE used and the language, so let's figure out how to actually apply them. And I'm going to use the MVC method to walk us through the process because there are a lot of moving parts even with simple apps. MVC stands for Model View Controller, and it's a design pattern used in application development. There are lots of different variations. Some have multiple views, some have multiple controllers, some talk to each other multiple ways, but this is the one that I use the most and how we're going to be going through this. Okay, so the model. So the model basically just stores the data in data models, so linked list, classes, objects, things like that. Just like any other program, but I think storing data is the most unique part, at least in iOS development. Storing data in apps is pretty straightforward, but it depends on the type of data you are keeping, so it's important to store your data the right way. The most common way in iOS development is just locally on your device, and you use that using core data. Core data is Apple's solution to persistence and should be used when your data doesn't change much, if there's sensitive information in it, or if only one person is using it, so not multiple people. Core data is the thing to use. So it's most likely the most common way to store things in smaller apps that like Solitaire, where you just need to keep the state of your app when you close it, something super simple like that. And to get a bit more technical, the diagram up here is how core data interacts with the controller, the model, and then its database, which is SQLite. So yeah, if you wanted to know how that worked, that's how it works. Okay, so next is the view. So the view is actually just the screen of the app you're working on. So I'm going to talk about what makes up the view. So first is a storyboard, which we will work a lot with in the demo. And that's where all the views in the app are connected to each other. So whether it's the launch screen, the main menu, one of the things off of the main menu, everything will be there connected how they're supposed to be connected. And the views in the storyboard also have this really cool feature called auto layout. So this is a constraint-based auto layout system, which when developing for iOS is really important, especially when downloading on multiple devices. So you want your app to look good in both an iPhone and an iPad, and this will help you do that depending on how big the device is. And it also helps when moving your app from horizontal view to a vertical. I know in Android development, you used to have to make 2 separate screens, but with iOS, auto layout allows you to just use one screen and use those parameters to change them so it's a more fluid change. So the next part is user interfaces. So user interfaces are pretty straightforward. They include tables, collection views, image views, different buttons and radio buttons that you guys have on your view. And I have 2 screenshots in an iPhone where you can find these types of interfaces. So the first one is settings, and that is a table view. The little gray bar, which you can't see, in between the two is a section, so you can have multiple sections with multiple rows inside of that. And then the next one is the Photos app, and that's a collection view. Collection views are mainly used to do photos. I guess you can use it to not do photos, but I don't know why you would want to do that. And then once you click on a photo inside the collection view, it becomes an image view, which is the image is the main part of the view you're looking at. And then the last part are IB actions and IB outlets. The word IB stands for interface builder. That's what the storyboard used to be called, but I guess they just didn't feel like changing those variables, so that's why it's IB. So IB actions are events that happen when user interfaces like buttons or text fields are manipulated by the user. So when a button is pressed or a text field is filled in, the IB action is executed, and we'll hook that up in the storyboard using an assistant editor later. And then IB outlets are just static objects that are not directly manipulated by the user, but they are changed within code. So if you input something in a text box and you click done, inside that IB action, it will change an IB outlet that will change a text label or something. So the things that the user can't actually change, but the code can. All right, so the last part is the controller. And in Xcode, the controller is called a view controller. It controls and manipulates the data in the model and then updates the view when the model is changed and vice versa. This is a little diagram of how at least my MVC model works. There are a lot of different variations that have them in a triangle, and they all communicate with each other. But this is the one that I like and I think works the best. Basically, the controller updates both the view and the model when they get updated, when they're notified that something changed within them. So the controller controls everything, and then the data, the view and the model don't touch each other. And view controllers are just made from Swift files that inherit from built-in view controller classes, and there's an example right there. There are general ones such as UI view controller, and then there are more specific ones like UI table view controller, which has built-in functions that the table needs to run. So it'll have built-in functions like how many sections there are, how many rows there are, what are the cells named, things like that. And we'll actually use those a little later. And then I just want to talk about Apple frameworks before we get into the demo. So these are built-in structures that make it really easy to develop on any Apple product, including phones, watches, TVs. And Apple has some great graphic and gaming libraries that you can use. And Xcode has software that will allow you to also interact with different services that they provide. So Siri Kit, which you can make custom Siri responses. Event Kit, which does calendars. And then you also have Messages UI, which you can create messages and send messages within the app that you're in. And these are just a few of over 150 frameworks, APIs, libraries that Apple has that are free for developers, so you can use their software to build something really, really cool and inspiring. Awesome. Okay, does anyone have any questions before we get into the demo? Yes?
So the MVC part is for the app itself, right? So if the app has to connect to a backend or server, so which part exactly directly connects to the server? Is it the controller or the model?
I would say the model, because the model is the part that directly has the data connected to it, so that would be the most likely. If we go back, so here the controller sends the message to the core data saying we need the data, and then it goes back into the model, which passes it back to the controller. So that's how it would be used if you wanted to use a database or something. Awesome. Okay. So we are going to make an app now. Just ignore this. Okay, so we're gonna make a to-do app. So it's a super simple app that has a table, and we're gonna get a button that we can type stuff in, and it'll add it to the list, and we can swipe to delete. It's very, very simple, but there's a lot of moving parts in it. So we're gonna make a single view app, and we're gonna name it To-Do App. Yeah, and make sure you guys have a team. When you're developing, you do have to be an Apple developer. There are two versions of being an Apple developer. The first one is paid, where you can actually put things on the App Store. And the second one is free, where you will get all of this. You'll get all of Xcode and all the libraries. But you do have to sign up and have an Apple ID and all that stuff. All right. Awesome. Okay. Okay. So this is what you get when you first create your Xcode project. So what you open up to is the storyboard. So this is where all of your views are connected. And sometimes you will have, when you're working on big apps, they will sprawl all over the place, and then you'll have to have multiple storyboards that connect to each other. It's super confusing, but it's really cool when you see them all connected together. So what we're first going to do is delete everything. And it also comes with a view controller that's already connected to that view, but we don't need that because we're not doing that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the MVC method, and we're going to start with the data. So we are going to create a new file, and it's going to be a Swift file because that is what it is written in. And we're going to name it list. We're going to name it items. Sure. The name of the thing doesn't really matter. It just matters what is in the file. All right, so here's that. So with the data, we are going to make a class called ListItem because this is going to be an array of things in a list. So we need an array. There we go. Okay, so we're going to make a variable, a mutable variable, and we're going to call it name, and it's going to be of type string. And you don't have to have semicolons at the end of lines in Swift. Oh no, we have an error. What is that? So switch is really good about telling you if you have errors before they run. It's very handy, and it'll even like suggest like things to do. So it wants me to initialize this variable, but we don't actually know what we want to initialize to. So we're just going to make an init so we can get rid of that problem. And we're just going to make an init. This is the name, and it's going to be of type string. And then inside that, we are going to set the name to whatever the inputted name is. Does that make sense? Is everyone following along so far? Okay, great. And then when we call it, it's going to give us an error automatically because this string is empty. This like class, it has like nothing in it. So if we try to use it inside of a table, it's going to give us an error. So I'm going to make an extension that I already have written. So this is an extension of the class, and we made a function inside, so right here, called just get test data. So it's going to just create a list automatically for us, which is going to help us to not crash. And when programming in Swift, this is if you want to return anything, this is how you return it. You do an arrow and then the thing you want to return. So this could be string, it could be a list of list items, whatever you need to do. So this is just going to return an array of list items with the name of this. So it'll just be an array of those strings, which is going to help us in the future. Okay, so that is the data. So we have the data all done and the model. So now we're going to go back to the storyboard. And we don't have anything in the storyboard. So what we're going to do is we are going to add, this is where all the objects are that you can add. So there are view controllers, page controllers, labels, buttons, segmented controls, all this fun stuff. But we just want a navigation controller. So a navigation controller controls like hierarchies of views. So if you guys want a, what's it called? If you guys want a view that has a header up here where you can put extra buttons, you connect it to a navigation controller. So normally up here we'll have like a back button. So if you're doing like a large app that has many different, like a table that has many different things, like in settings, you have a back button up in like the top left. So that's where that is. We're actually going to put a different button there. But yeah. So we created the initial view controller that's going to have. So we are going to then create the controller that the view is connected to, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to create a new file, but this is going to be a Cocoa Touch class. So that is all the built-in classes that Apple has for you to use. So it's a subclass of like collection views, toolbars, different things like that. You can see them. Okay, so the table view controller, we're going to name list table view controller. Next. That's fine. All right, so now we have a table view controller. So this is the specific type of view controller that I said before. And you can already see that it comes with functions already ready to go. And these are the functions that the app needs in order to make a table. So if you run it and you don't have these functions, it will automatically crash because it does not know how many sections it has, and it like has to have the number of sections. So speaking of sections, we are going to have one section because we don't need to break it up into anything. It's just one list. So yeah. But first we need to know how many rows in the section. So that means we need to make a list, an array inside of this class of type, what did it call? ListItem. So var, because we're going to manipulate it. ListItem dot. And then get test data, that is the extension that we created that's going to return that array so we don't get errors when we first run it. Awesome. so now we have our list of those list items. So the number of rows we have is we want the number of rows that is in our list because those are the things that are going to be in the table. So we are going to return list.count, which is just like size of or anything like that, but Swift uses count. Awesome. So list.count. What's next? Okay, so this is the initial setup of the controller, but it's not actually connected to anything, so we're going to go back to the storyboard and connect it. Since this is a table view controller, we have to connect it to a table view, and this right here, as you can see, is a table view. So we're going to come over here, and we're going to select this, and on the drop-down, it'll tell you all of the classes that you already have, and this is how you connect those classes to the views so they can like talk back and forth and change things. So list view controller. Awesome, now it's connected. So I guess we should change root view controller to something. We should do today. There we go. Fun. Okay. We connected it to view. What's next? So since this is a table view, it is not, there are two types. There's a static table view, which is a certain number in like the list, so they're not going to change it all. But since we are going to constantly be adding and deleting, we need a dynamic table view, and those are done using prototype cells. So this cell right here, this only little guy, it has a label already built into it, so all the prototype cells will already have labels. So normally what you would do is you would take a label and you would actually drag it in here. And those lines that you saw are part of, what's it called? Auto layout. So it'll like help you decide like where to take it. It's kind of like PowerPoint, but not. Anyway, but this already has a built-in label, so adding this one will actually like mess it up. So we're not going to do that. But what else do we need for a to-do list? We probably need a way to add things to the list. So this up here is called a, It's called a bar button, this up here. It's called a bar. So anyway, we're going to add this bar button item here. And we just drag that in, and we're going to say add item. Cool. So this is a button that is in this navigation bar, and it's not actually connected to anything, so we should probably connect it to something so it'll actually do something. And so we're going to go up to this button right here, and it's the assistant editor. Things get real messy real quick. Okay, so we have our, what's it called? Our controller here and our view here, and part of the view is the IB action. Awesome. Okay, so you're going to click on this little button, and you're going to have to hold down Control, and what you're going to do is you're going to move it into your controller, and it will tell you whether you want it to be an outlet or an action. And I'm going to choose action, and we're going to name it button add. There, sure. And then type is if it like takes in a certain type, but it's just a click, so we don't really need to. Connect. And there we go. So this is a IB action, so it's a function that executes when this button is clicked. So when this clicks, this happens. And it is of type IB action. So in this code, it's not actually seen that it's connected to anything. You don't see what button it is. The only way you can see it is going into Assistant Editor, and you can click, you can like scroll over this button, hover over this button, I guess, and it'll tell you like what it does, which is cool. And then if you're not an Assistant Editor, like this, you can come over here and it will tell you what it's connected to in the controller. One of the hardest things that I had to do was when I first started development, I would connect these to, I would make IB actions and then delete them and realize it needed to be an outlet. But all the actions were still here. So it would mess everything up, and it would take hours for me to figure it out. And then I came here one day, and I was like, oh, it's because I have 5 functions connected to this. So that was fun. Okay, so another thing that we're going to have to change, and that's unique to dynamic tables, is the controller needs to know what, where are you? Here you are. The controller needs to know what cell to use. You can have multiple prototype cells. So if you wanted to have one cell that had a picture in it and one that just had like a label, you'll have to use multiple prototype cells. In order to identify, like differentiate between those two, you use reuse identifiers. So we are going to reuse identify. We're just going to identify this as item. There. So now this cell is named item. It is the type of cell that is going to be used. So if you had multiple, you'll name them different things. I don't know what would happen if you named it the same thing. Probably something bad, but I don't know. Anyway, okay, so this is about all we have to do for the view. So let's go back. Oh, and the way I'm like collapsing these is using these little things. They tell you like the top and the bottom. They're like super handy. I really like them. Anyway, let's go back to our list table view controller. Okay, so we have our table list count, but we don't have anything in the table. So it's currently making the table of size like list count, but the cells are not getting the data that's supposed to be in there. And there are all these functions down here that are commented out. They are ones that are the most commonly used in table views, so they come in really handy so you don't like have to memorize every table view function that has to be there. So this is cell for row at. All of these have like different names. Can edit row at, things like that. So cell for row at means the cell is going to contain data at the index path that this is. And then it's going to return a UI table view cell, so of a type cell. So we have here cell, which is already declared for us. And here it's a reusable cell, which means it's a prototype. But with identifier, this looks familiar. So we are going to delete that and put in the reuse identifier that we actually used. So you can have multiple cells in here that have multiple like layouts, and distinguishing between those are as important, but it's also important when you don't have them as well. Okay, so configure the cell. So we're going to tell this function what we want inside. So we're going to make an item that's in the list, and we're going to have it be equal to the array that we made up here. So we're going to have it list. And then we're going to say the list at, since it's the list at the index path that we want, so we're assigning, so each cell at this point. So we want the list at that point that's going to match up to the table, if that makes sense. Did that make sense? That was really confusing. Okay, cool. So index path, and you'd think that this was all you needed, but you would be wrong, because you need row, which also took me forever to figure out. So I'm saving you a lot of time. So we have item, which is going to be the thing in the list at the same point as the table. So now we just need to assign it to the cell. So we're going to do cell dot label, text label, which is already there for us because it is a prototype, so it has this built in. If you want other things, they're not built in. So text label dot text is equal to item dot name, because item is an object. Yeah.
What's the question?
Oh yeah. So Swift also has this fun thing called optionals. So this question mark means that if text, so there are question marks and exclamation points. So question marks check to see if it's null, and if it's not null, then it like follows through. Yeah. So it basically just checks to make sure that this isn't empty. And if it is empty, it will like move on. But you can force it with an exclamation point. So if you use an exclamation point, it's just like, hey, if this is null, I don't care, just do it anyway. It's called force unwrapping, which is bad, but people do it anyway, and sometimes Swift will even suggest for you to do it, even if it's like, okay, like, yeah, I get it. It's a string. I don't know. But sometimes it will suggest for you to do that, but question marks are the safest thing to do. It just checks to make sure that is not empty. And sometimes, like you just saw, it just automatically adds them for you. So yeah, so this should work. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna run this because we have the number of sections that the table has, we have the number of rows that it has, and we have what's gonna be inside each of the cells. And we also have a list that already has data in it, so it should run already. So we are going to text this. So up here is where you run it. And then here is where you can get all of the device simulators that you could possibly have. And then if you plug in your device, you can even test on that, which is really cool. So we're just going to text on an iPhone XR because everyone has that. So here is our app. Ta-da! So we made this. Look, we're great. Oh, and it's reloading. Wait. Oh, so the reason it's black, I don't know. Hold on. Oh, wait. Okay. So when you delete everything, you have deleted everything. So it doesn't know what to do because you didn't tell it what to do. So you just do the super simple thing where you click on the first place where you want the first like initial view controller that you want it to have, and you've got to click this box called Is Initial View Controller, and then this little arrow shows up. So just save this, stop the simulation, run it again. And ta-da! It works. Yay. Okay, so now we're going to get this button to work because it doesn't do anything right now. Okay, so we're going to go into this list table view controller where we have the IB action already set up. And we are going to, when you click on it, it's going to create an alert that has a text box in it where you can put in whatever you want, and it's going to have a button that says done. So we're going to do that. And we are going to get this out of the document I already made. So some of these things have a lot of moving parts, and it's very hard to keep track of all of them. Okay, so I'm going to do this line by line to show you what's happening. So this means that we are creating an alert controller. So we got it. We're creating an alert. We have told the Swift program we are making an alert. And it's going to have the title add item, so that's going to be at the very top where it appears. And then we are going to add something called alert text. Well, it can be named whatever you want. But we are making a button inside of the thing. We're making a button in the alert. So when this is done, oh, we'll get to that. So when someone clicks the done button, what will happen is anything in this function right here, so this whole thing will be executed. So this is probably where we want to add that thing that they just typed in to our list and add it to the table. And then down here we also have cancel, and then inside of it we have added a text field that just says enter item. That's like the placeholder. And then we're going to add both the text, so the done button and the cancel button, to the alert controller, and then we're going to present it. So it's a lot of steps, but basically what you're doing is you're creating everything individually, and then you're attaching it to the to the alert controller, and then you're pushing it and presenting it out. Awesome. Okay, so this error that's giving us right here, it means that this function doesn't exist. It's because we haven't created it yet. But there, it has no member add to list. So that just means we need to create a function. So anything, when the done button is clicked, we want to add whatever was in the text box to the list and add it to the table. So we're just going to do, we're gonna make a function. So func, what did I call that? Add to list. And we are going to name it new item, and it's going to be of type string, and we're not going to return anything because we just want this to add it. We don't need to return any data. Okay, so inside this, we are going to create a new index that will get the index of the current list. So it'll just be list.count. And then we are going to append the thing that we just got, the new item, I guess. We're going to append it to the list. Contents of what? Hold on. List dot append new element. What do we call it? New item. And then from there, we have to add a new. So we added it to the list, and now we need to add it to the table. Wait. Oh, hold on. So this has to be of type list item because it's a, yeah, right? Yeah. So we are appending a list item to the list because it is of type list item. I just forgot to do that. And then we're, like the init said, we are assigning a name directly to it. So we just do all of that in here. I guess you could break it up if you wanted to, but we're just going to do it now. So now we added it to the list, and now we need to add it to the table. So we are going to do table view. Where is it? Okay, we're just going to table view dot insert what? Maybe I didn't add it. Hold on. Table view dot insert rows. Where are you at? Nope, I should have it. Hold on. Table view dot in. There we go. Okay, so the V had to be capitalized. My bad. Okay, at index path. Now we just made a new index, and that is what it's going to be. The new index, right? No. So this has to be a array. So we're going to make it an array. So we want the array to start with index path that it already has. Where is it? Here it is. And then I wrote this out ahead of time. Maybe I wrote out too fast and I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, so there we go. New index section 0 with dot top. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to take the table view and insert row this is of type index path, so it has to be, you have to tell it what row and what section it's going to be in. And then I have no idea what this does, but you have to do it this way. Wait, okay, hold on. I'm pretty sure what this does is it adds it to the top of the list, which will put it at the bottom of the table. I don't know. I think that's what it does. Doesn't really matter. 90% of iOS development is just looking things up online. Like most programming. Okay, so this should work. So we're going to run it again and see if we can add things to the list. Does anyone have any questions so far? Is this helpful? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, we're going to add an item. Please work. Oh, thank God. What should I add? Workout. Thank you. And there we go. It's right there. Isn't that great? So the only thing I think we're missing is a way to like delete things if we are done with them. So we're going to stop that simulation, and there should be a function that they give you. Here it is. That says can edit row at. And inside here, we are going to swipe to delete. So this is a super simple function. So we're going to list.remove is a like built-in function to most things, at least with arrays. So we're going to remove at the index path.row that we have from this function, and then we're going to get the new index path of type index of array of index paths, and then we're going to delete the row at that index path that we said. Awesome. So we're going to save that again, and we're going to run it again. And, oh, great. Okay. So I think this has to be, shoot. Okay, I think this is because this row, hold on, did I write that wrong? Pretty sure I didn't. The top index path, name, table view, insert rows. Huh. Okay, well, let's debug this. So you just put these little markers here, and then let's run it again and see what happens. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. Okay, I think it's if index path dot row is less than list dot count. Maybe. We'll see if this works. So I think the problem is that we're telling it to get a row that's not there. Oh, and it'll stop. Nope. Well, hold on. Let's consult the thing I already did. Nope, this should be it. Hold on. Programming at its finest. Oh, shit. Thank you. I mean, shoot. Sorry. Well, there you go. So why didn't it like that? Anyway, there's our app. Why didn't that work? There you go. iOS development. Woohoo. Does anyone have any questions? Would you like me to continue debugging this? Yes.
The question comes back to like how the MVC works. So do you have model controllers that control the logic of updating the model from the database? Or does the core data kind of push things through? How does that work?
So I have worked very little with core data. So yeah. I'm not a pro at it. Yes.
So
Just Google it.
when you're passing parameters, do you have the name of the parameter? Like what comes before the colon? Like any
This?
or just like any
Okay, so with Swift, it does this funky thing where this is the name when you are getting the variable. This is the name inside of the function, and then this is the type. So, yeah. So for example, our add to list. So if I had, I don't know, like pineapple. So here, pineapple is what's going to be used outside of the function. So we use the function right here. So right here is what it will be named outside of the function. So pineapple. So this works outside of the function. And then this new variable will be the one that is used inside of the function. So they're supposed to be named like text field is, and then this would be that. And then this would be text field is new item of type string. It's a way to like read it better. If you don't want to use it, you can either do an underscore or just not use it at all. But it's a unique thing within Swift. Does that answer your question? Okay. That was a great question. Any other questions? I don't know why this didn't work, but hey, that's life. Great. Yes,
This
no.
code on GitHub.
This code, I can put it on GitHub at Maddie-Eckhart. But yeah. So ignore the error, and it's like right in between both of them. So yeah, thanks for coming, guys.
Just 2 more slides to show what's going on in ACM and what's going on in the college in the next couple of weeks. So thank you, Maddie, again. If you want to talk to Maddie, if you have any other questions about iOS development, I'm sure she'll be happy to stick around and answer those for you. So upcoming meetings, 2 weeks from now, we have a continuation of our mobile development series. Will, say hello, Will, back there. We'll be giving a talk on Android development, so you get a taste of that as well. That'll be in this room 2 weeks from now at 6:30 p.m. Yeah, and after that, we will have another talk on low-level graphics in OpenGL. So that'll be cool. That's on the 29th. And then we'll finish off the semester on December 6th with a social, an ACM social. Just right before finals, just try to relax and have fun. If you're not studying for finals, then you can come with us to a social. So that'd be cool. It'll probably be like bowling or something like that. Or if you have any suggestions, let me know.
We watched the movie The Social Network.
Yeah. You want ice cream. Okay. Social network and ice cream. I don't know if watching a movie is like a very social thing. Anyway. What's happening around the college? Well, ACM, you already heard about that. We're going to have a mobile development workshop again. ACMW will have a talk next week, 6:30 in this room, just all about hackathons. Sam, raise your hand. We'll be giving a talk about that. Do you have anything to add, Sam? Okay. IEEE will be having a very large meeting on the future of biotechnology with Dr. Heikenfeld, who is a professor at this university in EECS. And it is a big deal because it's an IEE section meeting with ACM, or not ACM Nationals, IEEE Nationals. So there will be a lot of important people there. Michael, do you want to say anything about that?
It's a really, really exciting meeting. You should definitely come. Dr. Heikenfeld is super well respected and has his own startup, so he knows what he's talking about. And IEEE Nationals is really excited for the meeting as well.
Yeah. So definitely check out ACW and IEEE next week. IEEE will be in ERC 427. Is that confirmed?
Yes.
Cool. All right. That's all I have. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for coming.